What is up, guys? Welcome to my trailer breakdown for Arrow Season 7, Episode 19, titled Spartan. I will actually talk about the promotional photos way more than the actual trailer, because there's a lot more to talk about in the promotional photos, but still, anyway, let's show the trailer, break it down, and then let's talk about the promotional photos as well. But this episode will be all about John Diggle. They're introducing his father as well, and it seems like they're using his father to fulfill a famous fan theory that was also hinted at in the last crossover, so I'll get to that in a minute, but first, let's watch the trailer.
What the hell's going on?
If this guy isn't the target, then who is? We need to find John quickly.
Time for us to have a little chat.
Call the team.
So like I said, this trailer is pretty self-explanatory and there's not really much to talk about. It seems like the main storyline of this episode is Diggle being kidnapped by Dante and interrogated and tortured for whatever reason, and the way they get to that is that Oliver and Diggle go on this mission to stop. It seems like they're just told about an assassination or a killing that is going to take place, probably by the remaining members of the Longbow Hunters, and probably even Kodiak as well, because they just left him there in his apartment or whatever apartment they were in the last episode. I don't understand why they did that. I mean, they're deputized vigilantes. They can and could have taken this known assassin, this known criminal in to prison or whatever, to custody. I don't understand why they did that. So it's possible that the Longbow Hunters here are trying to assassinate, or they were told that the Longbow Hunters were trying to assassinate these random people, so they go into here and see that they're just nobodies and they're random people, but it's all like a trap to separate Oliver from Diggle so that Dante can drug him and torture him. Torture him for what reason? I don't know. I have no idea. You gotta think it has some sort of connection to the fact that Oliver and Diggle now know the connection between Dante and the Longbow Hunters, and the fact that the Longbow Hunters were the ones who killed Miko's mother. I mean, you gotta think it's some reason connected to that, just based off the fact that that was set up by the last episode, and also the synopsis for this episode mentions the fact that Oliver now knows this information and that he will use it against the Ninth Circle to to convince Miko to go against the Ninth Circle. But I don't really know why he would be interrogating him or torturing him about this instead of just killing him, or instead of like using him as a leverage against Oliver so that Oliver won't tell Miko, because if he does, then Dante will kill John Diggle. So at this point, I don't know why he's interrogating him, but honestly, I don't really care. The main part of this episode that I do care about is shown in more shown in the promotional photos than anything else, and that is this new character debuting in this episode, a character that will either die in this episode or just never return again in this episode. I doubt he will ever return. I mean, this is not a character that I expect to ever see again in the future, but it is this guy. In the synopsis, he's mentioned as like a 4-star general in the army, but it's pretty clear that he is John Diggle's father, and you can see on his army uniform, his name is Stewart. Now, the way this character will fit into this episode is the synopsis says that after the Ninth Circle delivers a major setback to Team Arrow, Diggle reluctantly reaches out to a 4-star general of the Defense Intelligence Agency for help, despite unresolved tension from their past. So, obviously, it seems like the Ninth Circle delivers a major setback to Team Arrow. I don't know what that is. It's possible that the synopsis is lying, and that it's not Diggle who reaches out to this person, but it's everybody else on the team. It's possible that Diggle is the major setback they're talking about is Diggle being kidnapped and Diggle being interrogated and tortured by Dante. So Team Arrow, for some reason, I don't really know why, reaches out to this general. I bet there will probably be some story reason that they do, or maybe some story reason that Diggle does. I do not know, but that doesn't really matter, because what matters is the fact that this character's name is Stewart, and the fact that a lot of people, including myself, seem to think that this is John Diggle's father, the father to John Diggle that he didn't really have a good relationship with, which is why, despite the fact that this character is John Diggle's father, presumably, they do not have the same last name, because they had a very, very rocky relationship, and John Stewart changed his name to John Diggle, and probably took his mother's name, which again was Diggle. This was a famous fan theory this entire time, basically ever since the first season of Arrow when John Diggle debuted, before being a comic book character at all, because he did originate on the show. There were a lot of theories that he would eventually just become Green Lantern and just still use the name John Diggle, or possibly be revealed to be John Stewart this entire time. The reason for that is because John Stewart and John Diggle definitely have some similarities. They're both named John, they both have military backgrounds, they're both black, they both are vigilantes, and they both work with superheroes, or at least one of them, that are associated with the color green. Obviously, John Diggle works with the Green Arrow and has since the very beginning, although before he was called the Green Arrow, he's still dressed in green. And then you have John Stewart, who is a Green Lantern himself and hangs out with the Green Lantern Corps, and on occasion teams up with the Green Arrow as well. That part, I mean, not exactly a similarity that's of note, but I do think that piling all of that together, the fact that they're both named John, they're both black, they both have military backgrounds, and they're both vigilantes, piling all that together, it's easy to see why so many people thought that these two characters were so similar, and why so many people equated the two, and why so many people think that John Diggle should become the Green Lantern himself. I personally think that John Diggle would be awesome as a Green Lantern, especially if we know that he is essentially the same character as John Stewart, and I've always thought that the best way to incorporate the John Stewart part of the Green Lantern, or at least make it so that John Diggle is John Stewart and always was, is through his father. And it seems like that is what they're doing now. I don't think that John Diggle will change his name to John Stewart. First of all, we probably all would have a hard time getting used to the fact that John Diggle is now John Stewart, even though we've all probably known about John Stewart first. We've seen John Diggle, and we've been calling John Diggle more than we've been calling him John, so it probably would be a little bit weird to change his name to John Stewart, but after this, we just know that he's essentially the same character as John Stewart, and his father, at least, has the name Stewart. It's just that he took his mother's name after a rocky relationship, but I'm guessing also he probably will reconcile the differences and the arguments he's had with his father in this episode, after it seems like his father saves him from being tortured by Dante, or at least helps Team Arrow save him from being tortured by Dante, so they probably will reconcile a little bit. I don't think John Diggle will change his name, but that's just because he doesn't really need to, but I also don't think he'll get his lantern ring in this episode, and I doubt he will get his lantern ring at all in this show. If he does, then it probably will be in the Crisis on Infinite Earths crossover. I don't think that will be a bad idea at all. I think that would be pretty cool, but it might be above the budget that they have, even for crossovers, but I don't think he'll change his name, and I don't think after this episode there will be a huge change of the character. I just think that he'll probably have a better relationship with his father, and we will know after this episode that he is essentially John Stewart, probably the future Green Lantern. And I don't know about you guys, but I always thought that John Diggle outlasted his welcome on the show after, like, Season 5. I think he probably should have been killed off in the Lianu explosion. He was kind of ruined as a character in Season 6, and while he's been pretty good in Season 7, I still think that he should have been killed off in the Lianu explosion, but that was until this episode, and until the whole hint that he is possibly John Stewart, aka the Green Lantern from the comics in Elseworlds, because I think that a character like this should stick around in this universe, while a character like John Diggle should maybe be pushed aside and pushed to the background for bigger comic book characters, because remember, John Diggle is an original character and Spartan is an original superhero, and obviously I would much rather see characters like the Green Lantern in this universe. So now that he is, I guess, essentially John Stewart, I am much more okay with this character, and he probably will now become one of my favorite characters in the Arrowverse, because I don't really like original characters on these shows. I like the characters when they're adapted, and adapted well from the comics, and even though he's never been called John Stewart and he's not ever been shown as John Stewart, this character is still a great adaptation of what I think John Stewart would be if, one, he had a very rocky relationship with his father and took his mother's name instead, and two, if he never got his Green Lantern ring. This is essentially what John Stewart would be, and as such, it's a great adaptation of basically an Elseworlds version, or a alternate universe version of the character, and I think David Ramsey definitely has the potential to play an incredible version of John Stewart. Actually, one thing I want to mention is it would be pretty insane if he turned out to be John Stewart. Obviously, not only because the Green Lantern would be finally appearing, or one of the Green Lanterns would be finally appearing, and also the friendship of the Green Arrow and the Green Lantern is a very iconic friendship from the comics, although it is more Oliver Queen and Hal Jordan, not really Oliver Queen and John Stewart, but they changed it a little bit, so here you have Oliver Queen and John Stewart essentially being best friends. But one thing of note is how crazy and weird it would be for the Green Lantern, aka John Stewart to be the second version of the Green Arrow. This is a character who was the Green Arrow for a couple of weeks back in a pretty terrible storyline of Season 6, but nonetheless, this would mean that the Green Lantern, aka John Stewart, used to be not only a different superhero named Spartan, but he used to be the Green Arrow, which is pretty insane just to think about. But either way, it would still be awesome if he turned out to be John Stewart, and if he just got his power ring either now or most likely in Crisis on Infinite Earths. Oh, and also there are a couple other storylines, such as the flash forwards, that I'm probably really not going to like, as well as this storyline with Elena and Felicity. Something about Elena returning with an interesting proposal for Felicity, probably something to do with Smoke Tech. I definitely am not excited for that, but I am definitely excited for the main storyline of the episode, and I'm definitely excited the most for all the Green Lantern Easter eggs, the John Stewart goodness in the next episode, and if John Stewart and David Ramsey as John Stewart becomes a more major character in the Arrowverse after this episode, then I will not mind that at all. I've always liked John Stewart. He's always been my favorite Green Lantern, probably because he's the Green Lantern I grew up on in like Justice League and Justice League Unlimited, and I would definitely love for him to become the main Green Lantern in this universe. Obviously, it would be awesome to see any Green Lantern, but I would definitely like to see John Diggle become John Stewart, and I think David Ramsey would do such a good job in that role because he's kind of already done the exact same role, just without the Green Lantern ring. But let me know all your thoughts in the comments down below about this trailer. Are you excited for all the Green Lantern Easter eggs and all the Green Lantern changes or the John Diggle changes in this episode? Let me know in the comments down below. And if you like this video, make sure to leave a like, share, and subscribe. And thanks for watching.